Hey guys, SoCal Val here. You are listening to the Hitting the Turnbuckle podcast.
Hello, welcome everybody back to the Hitting the Turnbuckle podcast. I am your host, Adam Cousins, and today we are talking all things Impact Wrestling from last Thursday. We do have to apologise again. We've been a bit late with the Impact Wrestling and a couple of other stuff, but as you can probably know by our socials, we have been kind of busy this weekend, and the man that's obviously with me that does a lot of my review shows has returned today. He was at Buckle Up yesterday with us, doing loads of great stuff with Ignite. It's Dave. Right, Dave.
Hey, mate. You okay?
Yeah, good. We all got back safe and sound. Yesterday it was good to see your dad for the first time in 11 years.
Yes, mate. He
yes,
absolutely loved it. Got himself a free Turnbuckle t-shirt. It was
repping the merch. So,
yeah. What a weekend, man. What a weekend.
What a weekend. What a weekend. Yes, first off, we want a big thanks to Ignite. Obviously, our event, Buckle Up with Ignite, was yesterday. Sold out, Bournemouth, 200 fans. They had a cracking show from top to bottom of that card. We did announce the the Turnbuckle Championship that we will crown a new Turnbuckle champion in September.
Who have I got in my qualifying match?
Who have you got in your qualifying match? That's too big. Well, yeah, we'll have to wait and see, Davey. But you did a good job. You kept the people that you went and saw when you went and saw your event on Saturday. You kept Charles Crowley and you kept Aluna Blue all healthy and safe so they could appear on Sunday. So you done good on that one, Dave.
Aluna Blue, I said to her, I've seen her on a few indie shows now, and it was great to see her pick up a victory last night.
Yes.
I think she's the hardest working wrestler on the UK scene at the minute. Every single show and every single poster you see, she's on the front of it. So she's definitely kind of getting her reps in and paying her dues, as they say in the industry.
Indeed.
So it was great to see Aluna. She's a massive hit with the kids as well. What I liked yesterday, and it's a different feel at some indie shows. It's a more of an adult audience. It was a very, very family-friendly environment, Ignite, and I would certainly say if you're in the Bournemouth area and you've got kids, what a day out it is. A lot of fun, some freebies as well. All the kids there last night had a great time, and I had to promise a couple of our fans to not swear anymore. So
good luck with that, Dave.
Yeah,
we're going to have some terrible shows coming up.
Yeah, I'm committed to not swearing moving forward, and I'm going to set up a little swear jar. So if I swear, we'll do something with a swear jar and charity for perhaps. But yeah, Abigail, there was the little Buckle fan sat behind me. So Abigail, I promise I will try and keep my language very clean.
It's a good thing that we're reviewing Impact because the show was great. So we'll crack on. Yeah. Just quickly, so before we crack on, if you do want to come to Ignite in September, go on to Ignite's Twitter at Ignite Wrestle Pro. They've got their link there to Eventbrite where you can purchase tickets to September show. Front row already extremely limited. Second row starting to go as well. So if you want to get in, I'd get in now because the announcements that are going to be made for what's going on in that show, they'll probably end up selling out again. But anyway, shift focus, because that's not what we want to talk about. Well, we do want to talk about that, but we can't talk about that for the rest of the show because we are talking Impact Wrestling. Now, Impact Wrestling aired last Thursday. It was the Impact after a fantastic pay-per-view that was Slammiversary. It kicked off with Scott D'Amore basically coming out, said it was always, how special it was, standing with Eric Young and A1. He did say that his leave of absence is done and he's now back in charge. And that Santino Marella will face Dirty Dango. We'll be hearing from Josh Alexander later on in Impact. And as he was finishing up, the Good Hands come out, said he was a coward. But D'Amore challenged them to enter the ring, and they got in. And it was all about, they're going to get a beating from the Good Hands. But Scott D'Amore had a couple of good hands of his own, Dave.
Yeah, he did. They didn't expect that one.
No.
Yeah, it set up the first match of the night, didn't it?
Yes. And Scott D'Amore's good hands being Sami Callihan and
Rick
Swann.
Obviously a team that have been together a lot of late. You know, that we've seen them on Impact for the past number of weeks.
Yeah.
A great pair, and the tag division is so strong in Impact. Yeah. I mean, the whole of the roster at the minute is doing great things, and we're massive fans of Impact Wrestling. But the tag team division itself, not only the title situation, but the teams such as Callahan and Swan are putting on entertaining matches week in, week out, and this was yet another one.
It was a really good opener to the show. It kicked it off really nice. Again, it kind of set the tone for the entire show. It was a good back and forth, but Callahan and Swan hit the double Razor's Edge.
Yeah,
victory on that. But a really good opener.
Razor's Edge. My number one finisher from our top 10 lists.
Oh, we've got another one to do.
So. Another one that wasn't kicked out of.
Yet. But a really solid opening start to Impact, though.
Yeah. Again, they've just been on this great run, coming off the back of Slammiversary, and they started this week off hot as well. Obviously, they don't do everything live, and I'm still getting used to the way they record things and stuff. Yeah. So I think they record a couple of episodes at a time. But that also means that you get the announcements of what's coming the following week as well. And this week and next week, absolutely stacked shows.
Yeah, exactly that. It takes us to, you managed to you mentioned about the backstage bits and the live. It took us to ABC that were backstage, and it said, Slammiversary, should have been the show of the year, but the Rascals obviously cost them the titles to Subculture. They showed up again backstage. They got into a big brawl, and D'Amore books them into a match, and then segued because Johnny Swinger showed up.
Yeah,
and they had this 7-match rule where if you win 7 matches of it, you get a title shot, something along those lines.
Yeah,
and he basically, Scott D'Amore said, no, you don't have to win 7, you only got to win 1 to get a title shot, and he has to beat Zicky Dice. And Zicky Dice basically said, well, that's all right, I'll just lay down for you. And Scott D'Amore basically said, whichever one of them loses is gone from Impact Wrestling. I think obviously things have come out since, but we're not going to spoil it. But an interesting way to get this match actually booked, Dave, on this.
Yeah, a creative way to do things. I think this angle has been running for a while, hasn't it, with Swinger?
Yeah, Dice has been trying to get into the refereeing game, I think. I mean, that was another thing that he was trying to do. Yeah.
I remember some of the vignettes and the videos from backstage that have been really good. But yeah, definitely a little bit different. And that's what Impact's doing. It's doing things a little bit differently, and they're doing things their own way. And the more stuff that they're throwing out there, 9 times out of 10, it's working at the minute.
It is, and it's nice to see it working as well. We go backstage again at this point, and now Gia Miller is with Eric Young. And he was saying how cool it was to stand with Scott D'Amore. And all of a sudden, our good mate turns up from last week, Nick Aldis. And we thank Nick Aldis again for last week's interview. It was a fascinating insight, really, into his world of wrestling. And we thank him for his time. It was, as I say, very enjoyable interview. I know you met up with him this Saturday, Dave, as well. Personally thanked him from us face to face. Anyway, just quickly sidetracking on, Eric Young said he's all about tradition. And the tradition is getting in the ring and fighting, and not this.
He said tradition a lot, didn't he?
He did. He was very big on tradition, wasn't he? And it's not about the internet. It's about tradition, and it's about fighting. And Nick shook his hand, and that was it for that segment. We are assuming, Dave, that he will eventually go one-on-one with Eric Young at some Impact taping down the line. But Nick Aldis itself, say, very good interview last week with him, and you met him personally Saturday.
Yeah, I think let's set that match up for next week on Impact alongside the Zicky Dice and John Swinger match. I think they're both happening next week. But yeah, Nick was absolutely great. I met him at the Shropshire Wrestling Alliance on Saturday. Another first time for me being there. They put on a great show as well. Man like Doris was there. Hopefully we'll be able to get him on the podcast soon. Had a chat with him. But Nick was great. He apologised for his audio. I don't think it was too bad though. I think it was a great interview for us. Great insight. Also asked if Mickie James might be, might consider blessing us with her time and gracing us with her presence for an hour on the podcast. And hopefully that's in the works as well. So More exciting things coming along the line for our Buckle fans.
Yeah, hopefully so. Listen, Nick was fantastic, and if we can broker Mickey to come on,
Impact legend, right?
Not just an Impact legend, she is a legend. Full stop.
Yeah, legend across the board.
It would just be amazing if we could, have a little chat with Mickey. And formats have been sent. Put it that way. That's as far as we can go at the minute. Anyway, so sidetracking onto that, then a vignette for Jake something who returned. I do like their vignettes, Dave.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because their production is like, obviously you look at WWE and they've got this multi-million-pound production thing, so everything is like a cinema style presentation. But Impact, like, they don't have that kind of money.
Yeah.
But their presentation of these vignettes and some of these like things, or say vignettes, or some of these interviews when they're out in the back, out as in the wild, or an abandoned building, they're just so good.
Yeah. They've obviously, I don't know how much the talent are involved with it as well, but whatever they do, they've got a great team that are putting this together. And obviously they don't do live, so they've got the time to edit things and get things exactly where they want it, and it's making for some great television at the minute. There's some great packages at Slammiversary, before every single match. So yeah, the WWE, you can't beat the WWE for production. If you say they've got the budget, even AEW, they've got a bigger budget, much bigger budget than Impact Wrestling. But it feels a bit like grittier and it's definitely a real feature of their weekly television.
It certainly is. I love it. I think it's great. Anyway, Jake Subbing took on Kevin Knight. I didn't know a lot about Kevin Knight before this match, I have to say. And this is a disrespect whatsoever. It's just we're still getting used to these Impact names. That's
exactly.
That is exactly what we're doing. And
both of these guys were involved in Ultimate X, weren't they? Jake something made a surprise return. Yes. I hadn't seen much of these guys prior to that match. That was great. And I thought they put on a pretty good match here as well. Very different styles. Obviously, you could say that in some respects they weren't a natural pairing.
Yeah.
But I think they put on a great encounter. And in the end, Jake something's strength and power game was a little bit too much for Kevin.
Yeah, exactly that. Because obviously Kevin's more a high flyer. He was doing a lot of things off the top rope. He was doing. There was times in that match when he leapt off Ferrari Carrana and something caught him in the powerbomb and bits and pieces like that. So you're right. Exactly what you're saying is it was a Kevin Knight's quickness and high flying agility versus more of a power striking game from Jake something, which ultimately, as you said, led to the win, because he hits. Knight did hit a splash off the top rope, but I think it's something calls it into the void. I think he calls it. For the win. So we'd have to look at that.
He's got his big return at Slammiversary. He's got a singles victory here now on the first Impact following it. So they're obviously think a lot of him. So it'd be interesting to see what they do with him moving forward and where he moves. Does he go more X Division or because he's a big guy? The sky's the limit, really. So I didn't see anything from his run prior to him coming back. No. I assume he was injured because I hadn't heard much about him. But so far so good on his return.
Yeah, and as you say, we'll find out what happens, what's in store for Jake something as it goes along. Now, a promo for Emergence aired at this point. And it was someone that we're very familiar with from the Forbidden Door, Sonada.
Yeah.
And on Emergence, we know how good Sonada's going to be. We don't obviously know his opponent or anything like that, but that's just exciting just with the name itself.
Yeah. So they obviously got the collaboration with New Japan as well. Yeah. I think it's such, as long as it's done like this, where it's these occasional events and it's not done too much. I think these type of dual produced shows, similar to hitting the Turnbuckle Ignite at the weekend, when two great associates come together to put on these shows, I think it's a great thing for wrestling across the board and exciting for wrestling fans as well, because we're getting these type of dream matches and these matches that you're not going to see very often, matches that you would never think could happen. are a possibility. Great from a business point of view as well, for both companies, the exposure to Impact to the Japanese market and vice versa. So yeah, having Sanada at the next event is going to be pretty special.
And of course, they've already got Kushida, who's the X Division Ultimate X.
He won Ultimate X.
Yeah,
so he's got Leo Rush coming up as long as Leo Rush retains.
There's more. There could be more to that story in a minute when we carry on. One of our favorite and one of the big things that we're advocates of, Dave, is women's wrestling.
Yeah.
Now this week, I believe the women's wrestling there was more women's wrestling on SmackDown than there was anywhere else. I know we're talking Impact, but we're just making a point. Although potentially the match wasn't as good as the other minutes that have been on other companies. But anyway, the women gets to showcase their one, and this is Courtney Rush. I think she was Rosemary for a while against.
That's why I recognised her.
Yeah, Rosemary. She's normally part of it. I think they went through a time warp, or they've gone weird, and she's gone back to Courtney Rush, which is her real name. So hopefully she'll go back to Rosemary. I mean, she plays these characters so well, Courtney. But anyway, she was taking on Savannah Evans. Part of this match, Jodie Fret comes down as well. And she carried Vidal out of the match, didn't she? Well,
yeah.
There was a lot of distraction from Vidal and Giselle Shaw, because obviously they're a part of the group. But in the end, as I said, Jodie Fred did come down and carry Vidal out of the match, and Savannah Evans got hit with a form of rush, I think she called it, for the win. But
spear, is it? Yeah.
Yes, I think so. Yeah. You made a point the other day on one of these other podcast, David. You were sort of saying about how we like the women getting a time, but they do need a storyline.
Yeah,
they're doing it here at Impact.
Yeah, this is it, and it's sprinkled in as well throughout the episode. You know, they're not just in there. Like, I was critical last week of the Britt Baker match that was on Dynamite, because it was just there. Yeah, you know, there's more kind of story and effort. They've always been so good, though, from the inception of the Knockout division, and that it's always been a feature of their shows that the women main event, and they feature in good storylines, and they're not an afterthought. And this is another example of that. You know, lots going on in the Knockout division. Yes, exactly that. A lot's going, and that's what we like, you know. And there is this storyline about this particular. I mean, there was a storyline involving, you know, Trinity and Deonna Purrazzo, which we're going to follow up with in a minute. But it's just good to see that we're getting the sprinklings of the women on these shows. But now Impact seem to be taking the lead in form of adding the storyline element to give these matches a meaning and to give them a bit of longevity as well. Yeah, and as we get more in depth with our Impact reviews, we'll be able to look at some of the producers and the people that are involved backstage with putting these segments together, because they're just doing such a fantastic job at the minute. And really, AEW and WWE to a degree should take note. And I know that people kind of scoff at that because WWE are the biggest wrestling company of all time, but you can always improve. And I think the women's divisions are areas where both of the big companies can improve, and Impact lead the way in that department. They certainly do. And speaking of the women, the next two video packages or vignettes were about women. You like that word, don't you? Vignette. Vignette. It's a good word. It is. I do like that word. It's a very good word. The first one was Trinity, obviously winning the Knockout Championship Slammiversary. And she said, look, she's always wanted to be in a division, but now the real hard work begins. So Trinity is now waiting for her first challenger. Maybe there's a rematch clause in the contract of Deonna. I don't know. But I don't think she's going anywhere, is she? I think she's staying in Impact. Who, Trinity or Deonna? Oh, Deonna. Yeah, I mean, there's been nothing to say anything of the contrary. So I would imagine that she sticks there. So there should be a rematch. By all means, let's have it, because their match at Slammiversary was great. So I'm happy with that. Then there was the Coven and Kellen King saying the headlines were about Trinity. Taylor Wilde said their glow doesn't need batteries. So are they looking? Is that where they're shifting it now to maybe Killian King or the Coven or Taylor Wilde in particular? Is that the feud for Trin maybe that's going to start? Yeah, I think that they kind of issued the challenge to Trinity and Danny Luna, didn't they? That seemed to be what they were setting up here. So again, it's not just about Trinity being like the women's champion, and that's the only thing. She's just there in championship matches. They're telling the story here as well with the Coven and Kylie King. I've said it before on the podcast. She's going to be a big star in the women's division. You know, she's a big enough star in Impact, but I think she's going to have one hell of a career.
Yeah, it does look that way. She's very, very good. I do like Giselle Shaw as well, I have to say. I think there's another one there that needs to be looked at. One of the greatest commentators and one of the most underrated commentators, in my opinion, Tom Hannifan, at this point, sat down with Jonathan Gresham. Now, this was a real interesting because there's a lot of rumblings away from Impact Wrestling at this about this, and whether this was a shoot, whether it was a work shoot, or shoot work, whatever you want to call it. He was interviewing Jonathan Gresham, and he talked about Ultimate X, and he said the tagline was the match with no limits, which means no rules. He said he fought for rules even in Ring of Honor, and maybe this environment is not for him, and he got up and walked away. Now, we know Jordan Grace, who's his girlfriend or wife, has left. From what we know, her contract expired and she's now a free agent. What do you think this means? Is this just him teasing something that's not going to happen, or is there some meat to the bones here?
I found it interesting that he brought up Ring of Honor. You know, so and obviously this wasn't something where he was in the ring on a live mic, and it was obviously thought had gone into what he was going to say here. I wouldn't be surprised if we see some kind of pure wrestling championship make its way to Impact. I don't think Jonathan Gresham's going anywhere. Obviously, he was Ring of Honor champion when AEW and Tony Khan bought Ring of Honor.
Yes.
And before long, he lost the title. I think it was it to Claudio? He's got it now. Was that the match, or was it gone? I'm not sure if it went from Gresham.
Claudio beat somebody for it, to be fair.
Yeah, I wasn't sure. I'm not sure if it was Gresham that Claudio, but I think it might have. Anyway, and then obviously AEW wasn't the environment for Gresham for whatever reason. He didn't stick around and he left Ring of Honor.
Yeah.
He seems to have really found a good home for himself in Impact. So the fact that they've given him this sit down interview suggests to me that there may be something coming in terms of a pure championship or something of the like for Gresham. I can't see what other direction they would go in, really. If he was leaving, I don't think they'd do it in this way. They don't tend to, because he's basically criticizing the company to a degree. He's saying, you know, it's lawless in terms of what the X division is, and this isn't what it's about. And, you know, I stand for tradition, so more tradition. So, yeah, I think I wouldn't be surprised if it'd be interesting to see which way it goes. Gresham's one of the top talents in the world, one of the best technical wrestlers around. So I'm sure Impact will be doing everything they can to keep him there. But yeah, with Jordan Grace taking a break at the minute, it remains to be seen where she ends up. But I wouldn't expect Gresham. I could see Jordan Grace in the WWE.
Really?
I could, but I couldn't see Gresham in the WWE. I just don't think they would use him as well as he should be, similar to Gable, really. I'm not saying they'd use him as a strictly a comedy kind of wrestler, and you know, I'm sure anybody would love the opportunity to wrestle for the WWE, but I think Impact suits Gresham a lot more. And obviously he's got the more flexibility to do Japan. He's got the flexibility to do more indies as well. So I don't think he's going anywhere. Long-winded answer, but I think Gresham stays. And I think something is set up so he features more prominently on weekly shows.
He did, just to sidetrack, he literally about a year ago to the day, he did beat Jonathan Gresham, Claudio Castagnoli.
It was, yeah, I thought it was. And obviously that signaled the end of his run in Ring of Honor, which was a massive shame. Massive shame for me as a fan as well, because I really, you know, the idea of Gresham being in Ring of Honor and having the crossover opportunity to wrestle some of the AEW guys as well. For me, I was licking my lips. So, but I was glad to see him re-emerge. As I say, he's too good a talent not to be on television, essentially. So yeah, I think there's going to be something significant for him in the following weeks, and I'm looking forward to seeing how it unfolds.
Yeah, I mean, so I certainly hope so. I don't think the losing Jordan Grace was a blow. So if they did lose Gresham as well, it would be a really big blow. But I mean, he would be limited at this point. I mean, because obviously there was something going on at AEW and Ring of Honor that he wasn't quite right for whatever reason. It was a falling out between him and Tony Khan. So there isn't really a lot of movement, really, unless he's going to go to like a New Japan or something like that, other than WWE. And you're right, WWE Jordan Grace definitely suits that. Not so much Gresham, but he would. I mean, imagine like him and Gable.
Yeah.
I mean, we shouldn't be talking WWE.
We'd love that, but they're not the type of matches that WWE seem to showcase. They're the smaller guys, and there are some exceptions to the rule, absolutely.
Yeah,
and as far as his career and earnings, it would be sensational for him to go to the WWE. The fact that he name dropped Ring of Honor, it did kind of get me a little bit excited as to because obviously Impact and AEW have worked together before. And they've done crossover stuff, so I'd love for that to be the case again. Even if that involves Gresham somehow getting hands back on, but I think the Ring of Honor Pure Championship would be like a step down from the World Championship, which is what he had previously. So it was an interesting little sit. To say it wasn't very long, it's a fascinating little sit there.
That is an intrigue, and it's what we always say. You always want to watch the next week. So they've already planted a seed there that makes you want to watch.
Job done, yeah.
Already job done. So well done, Impact, halfway through your show, making something that's already that you want to go and see next week. We move to the battle of the former WWE. Speaking of WWE, the battle of the former WWE guys, Dirty Dango and Santino. This match was quite short, but at the same time, it done a lot of work here. So there was a part of the match near the end where Dango goes to get a swanton. Morella moved out of the way. He goes to then put the Cobra on, and then all of a sudden, this guy in a helmet shows up.
Yeah,
pulls the Cobra from Morella. Dango sends Morella into the guy wearing the helmet for the win, and it turned out to be Johnny Bravo. Again, I wasn't really aware of who this guy was, so
I was hoping you'd know because I didn't have a clue. So I was a little bit, okay, but I don't know if the backstory, if there's a connection with Dango or Morella or who he was, unfortunately. So again, we'll have to see how that one unfolds. But I thought you might have known, but I definitely don't.
No, unfortunately, I'm not. Again, I'm still new to. Like yourself, we're both new to.
We'll get there. We'll be fonts of knowledge.
Yeah, you just have to excuse our ignorance for the for a little while, because
just a couple of weeks. Give us a few weeks grace.
Yeah, give us a few weeks to get up and running. And no, he's never been in WWE. I know that much. Just give us a few bits of time to get up to scratch with these names and people, and we'll find out, and we'll be a little bit better.
Well, I'm sure as you were talking, about the video packages that they put together, I'm sure they'll put one together to explain this a bit more to us. And it's certainly not the end of it. You would imagine that they're going to pick up and continue with this, and hopefully Santino gets a measure of revenge. Yes,
I think that's definitely on the rise. He will definitely hit a Cobra at some point. Backstage time again, and this is what they do really well at Impact. So Giselle Shaw and Savannah Evans run into MK Ultra, who are the tag team champions. Shaw tells them to move out the way. Slamovich basically talks to them in Russian. Jody Fret comes in with Jai Vidal and tells them to make sure this is the last time she has to do this. So are we looking at a freeway for the tag here, or what's going on?
Yeah, certainly looks like they're setting things up that way. I didn't realize MK Ultra. That's their tag name. Then
Luna and Slamovich, isn't it?
Yeah. So it looks like by giving them that name, and obviously they've got the titles, but you think that they're going in that direction. It's not going to be a short reign. It looks like they're going to be in the women's tag division moving forward. And again, as well as they do with the singles women division, they do very well with the tag as well. It's not an afterthought. It's featured prominently on every show. It's not just thrown in there for the sake of it. No. And you do get these backstage segments as well to build on the stories. Yeah. So it looks like it could be a three-way for the titles.
And it's like we said, you give the women time and you give the women a storyline.
Yeah. But it's not just that. Just doesn't stop at women for me. You
No.
know, like the X division. You know, that's the. I know there's no limits officially, but that's more like the cruiserweight title. But it doesn't feel like an inferior title. And you know how it was positioned with Leo Rush being the champion and with the machine guns holding both the belts. You know, that proves that it's not just, you know, it's not just the first match of the night and it's just like the warm-up act. Everything is given the same level of importance, and you know that really comes across.
It does, and it's nice to see refreshing change. So keep these refreshing changes up, Impact.
It's the funnest. I mean, because I'm familiar, I love Collision, and I've been enjoying on the whole watching more weekly WWE since I've been doing more reviews.
Yeah,
but I think this show, the Impact, is the one I look forward to perhaps the most. Because it's so much different to when I was watching it last. They've done so much great work. The roster they've got there. And when we spoke to Matt Ray Walt, he alluded to that about the roster and the team they're putting in. It's not just the performers, in fact, what they can do in the ring. I think it's the type of personalities and the atmosphere that they're cultivating backstage. And you can really see that it's a team effort and everybody's doing their bit and nobody wants to let anybody else down. Aldis said the same, didn't he, when we spoke to Nick? You know, that was very much the impression he had from being back in the company. You know, it was, you know, it's great to see and it's great to hear. And big up the Impact Wrestling.
Big up the Impact Wrestling. So the final match on the show, there is a segment after, but the main event is the show.
Yeah.
Subculture versus Bullet Club ABC, Ace Austin, Chris Bay for the basically their rematch. For the tag team. I mean, we were talking about. I mean, you guys were talking about how good the FTR Bullet Club Gold match was a couple of weeks. I mean, I'm not saying you know this was better, but I'm just saying that the standard of tag team wrestling when you actually have tag teams. And this is the thing, it's not just throwing guys together. I was talking to Chris Harris last week, and another Impact Wrestling legend, Chris Harris. We were talking the art of tag team wrestling, and it was like, you do get these ones where they're just thrown together, and it looks that way. You took the match on Collision, but you also take this match here with Subculture and Bullet Club ABC. I mean, this was just another quality tag team match with two great teams together. There obviously is a third because the Radicals do show up and attack Bullet Club ABC, run out through the crowd. There's a bit where there's a couple of pins exchanged in the ring before Andrews gets one of those pins to stick and Subculture retain. But this for me, I love tag team wrestling. I've loved tag team wrestling since the late 80s, early 90s, get my words out. And it went, and there was this, it just used to drop, and it's now seems to be going on this upward curve. Not in every promotion. There's only a few promotions that I will say do this. AEW's one, and Impact Wrestling is the other. Listen, WWE have got some great tag teams, but we're talking division. From a division standpoint, where you can literally name 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 teams that are so good and they can put on matches like this. And this was unbelievable.
Well, again, you know, big AEW fan, but I would say Impact's tag division and, you know, attitude towards tag wrestling is, again, the best out there. Because I spoke about earlier about, you know, Sami Callihan and Rich Swann. That was a tag match. Absolutely nothing to do with this situation, this picture, the title picture at all. So there's so much they can do with it, and they've been planting the seed for stuff for so long, and you know they make it look easy. Because if Rich Swann and Sami Callihan are in a tag team title match next week, then you totally understand that because of the wins that they've picked up. And they're not just a thrown together team. They've been teaming for a while now. But this match was great. I mean, I wanted a little bit more. It wasn't the longest, and there was a couple of commercial breaks in it, so that upset the rhythm as a viewer a little bit. But at the same time, I'm quite happy that they've left on more on the table essentially for another match. Rascals got involved. Obviously, they're going to have a match with ABC.
Yeah.
Because I don't want Subculture to feel like they're not the main story, because they're the tag team champs, and I'm sure they won't, and I'm sure they'll do a good job of that. Obviously, Andrews picked up the pin and the victory for Subculture in their first defense, so I'm hoping they get a long reign. I'm hoping they get featured, and I know they will, because Impact have earned our trust now in that department. They've got Subculture there as new champions, but they've set up another angle which doesn't involve the titles. And the fact there's that Bullet Club element as well, that for me, because we got a bit of Bullet Club in Japan, we got a Bullet Club in AEW and in Impact. So I am hopeful, like I said earlier, about the collaboration, that there will be more Impact and AEW crossovers, because I think some of the matches they could set up, even if it was a fact that they set up Forbidden Door for next year, which is a long way away, but if that also involved Impact as well, I think if all three companies could put on a super show, that would be sensational.
Don't get Andy started on super shows.
Not a fan?
No. We've already had a discussion about British wrestling.
Super. Okay, yeah.
Don't get Andy started on that. But yeah, I agree. But obviously, Impact do have their own Forbidden Door.
They do. They just those. But yeah. But if at some point they can set up, whether it's Forbidden Door or whatever it is, what the three companies coming together, the matches that you can have are tantalising. They are.
They very much are. I mean, I'm excited to see where that's going. I want to see more of those teams. Final segment. Josh Alexander, come out. Obviously back from injury. He had to relinquish the title. He said, when he was told to do 1 hour of rehab, he was going to do 4, because when Macklin was a champion, that was all the fuel that he needed. And he said, he asked basically if Shelley is good enough to beat Josh Alexander, and Shelley comes to the ring and said, he challenged for the Impact Wrestling title twice. One time he kicked Steve Macklin's ass, but the time before that he lost to Alexander. He wants the match to prove it, so he wants that match to happen. Here comes spanner number 1, which is Leo Rush starts, and he was basically saying, he said he was going to win the X Division title against Chris Sabin. He done it. No, he didn't win. He beat Shelley's partner. He said he wants to be the X Division champion, and there's only one. Sorry, Rush says if he wants to be the X Division champion, there's only one thing he's got to do, and that's exercise option C. Option C means, I believe, that he either puts that title against Shelley's title, or he drops the title and goes for Shelley's. One of the two.
So the option C came about when I was watching, and it was Austin Aries that first coined the phrase option C. So I think he can give up his X Division title and go for the world title. I think that's what option C is. So he'd relinquish the X Division championship. And he'd go against Shelley for the world championship. And he flirted with that idea in this segment.
He did. And then here comes sidetrack number 2, which was Kushida. Walks to the ring with the Ultimate X around his neck. He said there's no option C until Leo Rush faces him. And here comes sidetrack 3, 4, and 5. Bully Ray, music here, he come out. But as he done that, out come Moose and Brian Myers. And they attacked pretty much everyone in the ring, barring Leo Rush at this point. So Alexandra and Shelley got attacked. And basically, Bully Ray lifted Shelley for Leo Rush to hit him. And Leo Rush just walked outside the ring, held his title up, and walked out. And that was that bit ended. And it ended up on... basically, there was a beatdown on Josh Alexander and Alex Shelley to finish Impact. I'm just going to touch on that in a second, because next week's Impact, there's been matches announced. We spoke about this a little while ago. There was Johnny Swinner and Zicky Dice. There is Eric Young and Nick Aldis, and we're sort of questioning whether there was going to be a freeway for the tag titles, but it's actually going to be, at the moment, it's going to be a tag match next week. Trinity and Danny Luna versus the Coven. But Dave, final segment really again throws up more questions or opponents for Alex Shelley, which is again what we kind of want, because it's now, where are they going with this? What are they going to do? And that plays a really big part into wanting to see shows next week and the week after and the week after.
Yeah, they do a really good job of setting things up. And, you know, traditionally you get a main event and you get a match, but we had such a good tag encounter. We had the show ended a little bit differently, and I'm all for that. Bully Ray obviously got a history with Josh Alexander as well. I remember, because I'm a listener of Busted Open. I heard about that feud more than saw it. So whether they pick that up as well, there's a lot of different ways they can go with this. Obviously, Rush talking about option C. So I am looking forward to this week's episode, and seeing what direction they go with. We got those 3 matches, and I think that the Johnny Swinger Zicky Dice match is a loser leaves Impact Wrestling.
It will be, because losers fired, isn't it? That's what. That's how Scott D'Amore basically presented itself, wasn't it?
That's it. So and another, you know, and I sometimes I don't want to know absolutely everything that's going to happen the next week, just my personal preference.
Yeah.
But if you've got a few matches announced and it carries on in the story, that's perfect for me. You don't have to stack it, and you don't have to show every single match that you're going to have, because then you start kind of picking winners and losers and stuff like that. And if it goes that way, you're a little bit disappointed, because you don't feel like you saw anything new, because you've already kind of you know, it's too predictable, I suppose you could say. But when you've got this, all 3 of those matches, you know, could go either way. I know the results are out there on the internet. I've avoided them.
Me too.
But yeah, I'll be intrigued to say which direction they go in, and see a great match, I'm sure. Again, not the first time they faced each other, Nick Aldis and Eric Young.
Are we going to get a traditional wrestling match?
You'd like to think so. But it will be interesting to see how that match ends and the implications of the back of it.
Yeah, certainly would be. I mean, that, everyone, is the Impact Wrestling Review. Another solid show. If you had to give it a score, Dave, what would you give it?
So I'm gonna give it a solid 8. And I have to tweak it, because an 8 for Impact might not necessarily be on the same level as a WWE, but I'm considering it on what I know they're capable of, and the absolute best when it's just all guns blazing, a 10 out of 10 show. So I don't think it was that, but it was never going to be after a Slammiversary.
No.
There's got to be there's got to be the fallout from Slammiversary for one, and they've got to start planting seeds for the directions that they're going in. And there's a lot going on, a lot of shows coming up for them as well. So I thought this was a solid 8, which, you know, that's all it needs to be for me, to be honest with you. Anything more is a bonus. But yeah, 8 out of 10 show every week, I'll be tuning in.
Yeah, I gave it an 8 as well, which was for the same reason. It got me intrigued enough to watch, and it got me more so to intrigued enough to watch next week. So yeah, that's what I asked for. Job 100% done. Guys, that has been the Impact Wrestling Review. We'll try and be a bit more on time with these things now. We haven't got Buckle Up to deal with or anything like that, so we'll try and get the Impact reviews out a little bit sooner than the following week. But we're very busy people last week, so
yeah, and we're going to be even busier in the next few weeks, but we love it. You know, I've said it time and time again, and people are probably bored of me saying it, but such a great time to be a wrestling fan in 2023. This is a boom period, so I would encourage all fans, enjoy it. You know, every UK show I've been going to lately has been sold out. You know, all of the companies are doing well in terms of the big American companies.
Yeah.
A lot more casual fans are getting more invested in your likes of Impact and New Japan, and there's a real thirst for more and more wrestling. We've got All In coming up. The WWE are back in the country in a few months' time. Man, exciting. And hopefully Impact will be back in the UK at some point in the near future too.
Oh, I'd like to think Impact Wrestling would be here at some point.
But they've just done Australia, haven't they?
Yes.
You know, which is, again, the global outreach. I mean, the WWE have been putting on more and more shows across, you know, in different countries and places they haven't been for a while.
SummerSlam's the first pay-per-view since WrestleMania that was inside the US.
Yeah, this is it. So that just goes to show, and that's not just the WWE.
No.
Because the UK is such a strong market for all of those companies.
Yeah.
But not just the UK. We talk about the UK because we know more about it, and that's where we live, and that's where we consume our wrestling. But there's so many countries in the world, places like Germany, that huge wrestling fans as well.
Yeah.
And I'm sure the talent would love to perform for their German fans more often as well. So yeah. Great time to be a wrestling fan. I'm going to keep saying it and keep saying it because we've gone through periods where it has been a little bit more difficult to watch, and I haven't had the same excitement and enthusiasm. And it's been more of a bit of a challenge to watch some weeks, but that hasn't been the case for a long time now.
No, exactly that. And then you don't need tribalism in wrestling. You just need to enjoy it. Just think of those dark times when you only had the one company.
Exactly that. That's my point. It's there's exciting stuff happening across the board. There's companies working with companies. They're all bringing out the best in each other as well. The WWE product has, for me, massively improved off the back of companies like AEW coming along, and then some of the other companies as well stepping up. And great time for wrestlers as well, in independent wrestlers. Talk about the UK talent that we see as well on the shows that we're at. There's so many options now for work and to make a living in wrestling for these performers. Not just the wrestlers, you've got like the ring crew, you've got the lighting technicians, you've got the hire companies for stuff like screens and referees. There's a lot more involved than just the wrestlers, and it's great for the economy as well, isn't it? So yeah, let's keep it going. Let's enjoy wrestling, and let's stay as positive as we can.
Exactly.
No bad language.
Exactly, Abigail. We managed to get through one show, the first one. No swearing for you, so you can enjoy this one without having to cover your ears or worry about anything. I didn't swear, which is very rare. Dave didn't swear, which is fantastic. But guys, we can't thank you enough for following us and just listening to us just chat rubbish about wrestling and giving you guys our views and our interviews, and just keep on watching it. Follow us on HTT Buckle. Just search Hitting the Turnbuckle Podcast on socials, on YouTube, anywhere and everywhere. Just do that. And we will be back. We've got Collision to catch up on. We've got Raw reviews. We should be interviewing a snake Wednesday, with any luck, by the name of Jake. The snake should be coming on Wednesday to have a chat all in and bits and other pieces. And that's, so keep an eye on the social media for that. But guys, this has been the Hitting the Turnbuckle Podcast. I have been your host, Adam Cousins. He has been Mr. David Robinson. Until next time, everybody, buckle down, stay safe, goodbye.